Our story starts today with this, the humble banana, a fruit, or actually it's a berry that is called a hand that has fingers. And this little fruit has quite an interesting journey that really has only been part of our whole story for just over 100 years now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A. I'm Jay, your host, and this is the Coffee Q&A. We do this live stream most Monday through Fridays, daily, sometimes not so daily, at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you have questions about coffee, put them in the comments here or down below if you're watching the replay, and come join us if you're watching the replay on one of the live streams, 10 a.m. Eastern, most Monday through Fridays. How's it going? Mom's with us and Kent is with us. What's going on? So this is the banana. The banana, and this particular banana. Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. When you go to the store and you buy banana extract to use for flavoring, or if you buy banana candies, like you know how they have these hard candies that are shaped like a banana. If you have those and you taste those and you think to if you have ever thought to yourself, you know, it tastes like banana, but it doesn't quite taste like this. There's a reason for that, because that banana that they use to create the flavorings is called the Gros Michel. And that banana has been dead for 50 years now, right? This is actually what's known as the Cavendish banana. And this Cavendish is what has replaced. Was that there's a Panama fungus. So a lot of the current production of bananas now comes from Central America and South America, and some from Southeast Asia, but most of it from Central and South America. In Panama, there was a fungus that developed and basically wiped out all of commercial production of Gros Michel bananas. So they had to find something else. The Cavendish evidently wasn't as delicious or tasty as the Gros Michel, but it was more hardy to the fungus. So they started using this for commercial cultivation. Now the Cavendish is under attack by a mutation of that same fungus that is actually going to wipe this crop out probably within our lifetimes. So if you really like this Cavendish banana, eat as much as you can now, because before we're dead, these will be gone. So that's something to think about. Andrew's with us. What's going on, Andrew? Powerplant says in tropical zones you can get still old variety. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the nice things, that if you're from tropical parts of the world, you can get so many different varieties of banana, which is what I really enjoy. And I don't even know the name. I just see them at the market and I buy them because they're at the market. And that's the one nice thing about when you're traveling through tropical regions, whether you're in Hawaii or if you're in Central America or Southeast Asia, there's always fresh fruit available that has basically been vine ripened and brought to the market. And I like the little small ones. I forgot the name of them, but they're really small bananas. I just love the flavor of them. They're a little bit more intense, a little more concentrated, and also more compact. So I'll buy like a little hand of, by the way, these are called hands and these are called fingers. I'll buy a hand of it, toss it in my bag or toss it in the passenger seat of the car. And as I'm driving somewhere, if I feel a little bit of a snack, I have one of those. And it's really a wonderful thing. For me, when I'm in Southeast Asia, that and the jackfruit, I'm very happy then. Very, very happy. Now, the interesting thing, today we're going to be talking about the banana bread. And banana bread is actually like a very, very popular dish here in the United States. But banana bread's a bit of a misnomer. In the Philippines, we call it banana cake, which is actually more apropos to the actual product than calling it banana bread. Banana bread in America is called banana bread, and throughout most of the world, mainly because it's a quick bread and because they put it into loaf pans rather than cake rounds. People tend to associate that with being bread. Now, what's the big difference between bread and cakes? Bread and cakes, they kind of can have the same kind of ingredients. So they might have flour, sugar, eggs, some kind of milk or water or something like that. But the big difference is the way that they leaven the dough. So in the case of regular breads, you're using yeast as a leavener, and it's going to take time. Plus, hydration is lower, right? If you ever look at the way that dough forms versus cake batter flows, there's a difference in hydration. But generally speaking, they're using similar ingredients in different quantities. But the big thing is that breads are leavened by yeast, and cakes are leavened by baking soda or baking powder. Now, what's the difference? Baking soda, baking powder. Baking soda is the base. Baking powder is baking soda with an added dry acid component to it to encourage the leavening of your dough. Now, when it comes to actual baking powder, that has had the acidulants added to it. And what that does, it allows for controlled leavening, right? Like when you just have baking soda, it could get a little bit out of control, but the baking powder allows it's kind of like it reins it in and kind of keeps it under control. So those are the big differences between baking soda, baking powder, as well as cakes and breads. Paraplan says, so sweet, it tastes a bit like passion fruit and banana. Oh, yes, very much so. Good morning to you, Naomi. How are things in Arkansas? No, Alabama, because you go roll tide, right? Paraplan says there's a very unique fruit in the States called pawpaw. Very tasty. Doesn't travel well at all. Actually, like I'm in the Mid-Atlantic, so there's actually very big pawpaw following here. So like I think it's February. My chef friends and like my other friends are all like, it's pawpaw time. I gotta go. Where are you going, man? I'm not gonna tell you. What? Yeah, if I tell you, you might go there and other people might find out, and then I'm gonna lose my pawpaw. So pawpaws, it's been a couple of years since I've had pawpaws, but they're sweet. They kind of remind me of like soft cherry moyas, right? If you've ever had a cherry moya, it's kind of like a soft cherry moya. That's what I think of it, at least. Plan says the bread leavened by baking soda are called quick breads. Exactly. So quick breads versus fast or long breads, which would be the yeasted leaven. Because, when you're using yeast as a leavening to rise the dough, it takes hours. Like you're sitting there waiting. Like I remember when I was starting to learn how to bake, I got this recipe, and one of the guys one of the bakers that I knew was like, man, just take it for a ride. Huh? He said, yeah, put it in a pan, cover it with a towel, put it in your trunk, and go for a drive for an hour. I was like, what? Because I love to drive, right? So I'm like, all right, let's go for it. And so I would do that. I would put it in the back of the car, drive around for an hour, come back. All right, punch it down, cover it again, drive again, bring it back, punch it down, roll it out, let it do one more rise, and then bake away. So it's kind of funny. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But yes, it does take more time to do. Whereas, with quick breads or cakes, you just kind of like mix it all together, make the batter, toss it in a pan, and then bake away. Alabama. Yeah, I'm trying. The only reason I know anything about Alabama is because I watched the movie Crimson Tide. That's the only thing that I know about it. That's it. That's the entirety of my knowledge of Alabama. I watched that with Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington. And the beginning, they're on the USS Alabama. The movie takes place on that submarine. And, they at the very beginning of the movie, when they assemble the crew, they're all out. Hackman speaking to everybody, and he's like, what did he say? Go Bama! And they all write back, roll tide! And I was like, well, that's kind of funny. But I didn't learn until after that it had to do with the University of Alabama. But anyway. Paraplan says people who never tried custardy flesh fruit are missing out. They are revolutionary. But I think it's interesting because I think for the American palates, I think don't really like that kind of texture. Like we're not raised on that kind of texture. So even for myself, because I grew up here, I kind of had to learn a better appreciation for those kind of textures. Right? It took a little while. Like even with like a lot of my friends, they don't like the mochi stuff because it's too spongy, too springy, or they don't like sea cucumber because it's too gelatinous. Right? We like gelatinous stuff. But I think I would agree. Like if you haven't tried those, you should try them. Give it a try. Like even for me, like my uncle, he had a whole jar of gefilte fish. He's Jewish, right? He had a whole jar of gefilte fish one year. And I always thought, and I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, never had it. But I was like, that sounds disgusting. Fish in a can. What kind of thing is that? In a jar with like oil. That's disgusting. Now, of course, mind you, I've been eating like tuna fish my entire life. I was like, ugh. Well, one day I was at his house. I was like, "Let me try it." I was like, I'm just gonna put it in my mouth." So I took out a hunk, pretty darn good. I was like, "All right, I've been missing out." So I always encourage people to try anything that comes across your way, because you know what, you might not like it. You might like it. You might not like it. You might hate it. Like, I mean, if somebody offered me crickets, I'll try. I have tried crickets. It's weird, but if somebody offered it to me, I would try it, because at least I know. I have to know why I don't like it. That's probably the other side of it, right? Naomi says, "I'm missing out for sure." Then, no, come on, you give it a try. Give it a try. Don't be shy about it. Don't be shy. The funkiest fruit, says Power Plant. Most Americans eat a rock melon, cantaloupes. When they get a bit overripe, they get, oh yeah, for sure, like really, really, really soft. Russell's with us. What's going on, Russell? How are you, man? Good to see you. He says, I've noticed a lot of textural versions here in the US. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we have a diet that is cultivated for us, which is kind of part of what we're going to be talking about in this with the bananas. But there are certain textures that we're used to that other cultures are eating that we just don't have exposure to. And I think it's a shame, but I do encourage people to try it. But going back to that, right? So we've got the banana bread, and as you know here, we talked about the banana bread. This is the banana bread, and as you can see, it comes in a loaf pan, so we call it bread instead of cake. Now in the Philippines, they do call it banana cake. They, for whatever reason, have decided that they want to maintain the proper nomenclature for this product because of the way that it is made. And as you can see here, I was actually going to do this episode yesterday, and then I decided yesterday morning to pivot to do our I'm just talking about it right now, and I can't remember what we did yesterday. What did we do? We did another food that the pandesal, right? Because I decided to go with the pandesal yesterday because I think there's a tighter window on the freshness of the pandesal than it is for this banana bread. Now, this particular banana bread recipe was developed by my aunt. She came up with it, and I don't know if she came up with it or she just found it. She came up with it about 25 years ago, I think now 20, 25 years. So nearly 25 years ago, maybe 22, 23 years ago. And back then, my mom was campaigning on the Maryland State Fair circuit. So remember back in September, we was at the Maryland State Fair. They have all these competitions. And so my mom had entered a bunch of them for different categories, and she swept them with like blue ribbons. This one, my aunt decided to enter, and so she created this recipe or tweaked it out or whatever she did to it. And then I think she took the blue ribbon as well. I think this is also blue. Yeah, this is also blue ribbon. There's a couple of things that like got second place, but this and the coffee cake, the apple cake, and this, I think, were the three ones that got the blue ribbon. Now, since that time, I've used this particular recipe for the banana breads in all of the iterations of Spro and the previous J-shaped bites where Spro really springboarded from. And it's a great recipe. Whatever recipe this is, it's really nice. When you do it well, when you do it right, it's very moist. It's very it's got a nice level of sweetness. It's not terribly sweet. It's not terribly, it's not sweet enough, right? It is just the right sweetness, right? Now, and the nice thing about banana bread is that you can make it with so many different variations, right? Like this particular one is just straight up bananas. Now you can, by the time we evolved to Spro, we actually started adding walnuts to it. We would add walnuts to this, chopped up walnuts. We'd add that to the batter. So it'd be banana bread and walnut cake, and that would be our main staple. And then finally, when we open the second Spro in Hamden in Baltimore City, then we started to evolve a little bit, right? Because, one of the things that you kind of have to do is you kind of have to change a little bit with the times. And if you look at the different recipes from the different eras of banana bread, they actually do change to meet the different dietary concerns of that era. Like the 80s version is different than the 90s version. The 90s version is different than like the Atkins 2000 era version. But when we finally got, now this is the old school way. I wanted to go back. I like the old school. I don't have any dietary restrictions, so I'm, which has probably been a bad thing for me. But I just kind of wanted to go back to this. But when we started opening in Hamden, the idea was like, there's a lot of people that are more concerned about gluten-free. So how can we reformulate this banana bread to be gluten-free? So if you went to Hamden's shop, it was always gluten-free. And we actually ended up, creating our own gluten-free flour. Because back then, in like 2009, gluten-free flours were not a thing. Like, it was just starting to, become on the minds of like consumers and people, how to make a gluten-free flour. So nobody made it commercial at the time. Like later, Bob's Red Mill would make a commercial one. Even, what's her name? The one in Vermont. Even Sir Galahad. The Red Bag. King Arthur would come out with their own version of the gluten-free flour bread. And that was actually a complex process, because then we would have to bring in all of these different flours or ground meals of some sort. I have a whole recipe for them. But that was really a task, because you have to make it in like 30-pound quantities. So and then they're not all in the same ratio. So you've got all that. So I would have in the storage room all these extra ingredients from the batch, because you're using different quantities. But it was good. It was a good. People really liked it. It was probably one of our best sellers. But I don't know if it's bestseller necessarily because it was an awesome, incredible product, or because it is the most ubiquitous baked good in the United States. And since we're dealing with the U.S. clientele, it's sold very well, even as a gluten-free. And one of the things I didn't like about the gluten-free that I could never really get around, it's really difficult to get around. Like when you use tapioca flour, which was a proportion of this gluten-free flour, there's a grittiness. It's not even a grit, but there's this kind of this kind of feeling on my palate that I just never like. I want it to be softer. I want it to be smoother. But I could never get rid of that. And I never really, some of my good friends are like food chemists, scientists. I never really asked them about how we might get around it. But anyway. Bald Head Craig Head's with us. What's going on, man? How are you doing? Oh, I need to roll back a little bit more. Proplan says Minnesota exports lutefisk to the northern European countries. Oh, I didn't know that. And they have quantified texture versions and has a high comorbidity with neurodivergence. Oh, wait, they have quantified texture versions and a high comorbidity with neurodivergence. Interesting. Ken says lutefisk is delicious, still very popular for Christmas. I have not tried lutefisk. I'm gonna have to give that I'm gonna try to see if I can find one to try it out. And Neri says that my favorite banana bread is one with walnuts, and that banana bread needs lots of oil. Andrew says, Spro, enjoying my Agent 99 with a donut rum apple fritter. Oh, nice. No banana bread this morning. And Ken says, well, I think it originated up here and was brought to Minnesota, Dakota with the immigrants. That makes sense. I mean, they probably immigrated there, and then maybe there's better production of lutefisk in Minnesota, or maybe more fish. I don't know. Proplan says, olive oil cake is awesome, very easy and tasty. That's one thing I have not made. Proplan says, there are tons of Norwegians and Swedes up there, found their own little clan. I guess the Swedes, they want to go up someplace where it's cold. They're like, we don't feel home if it's cold. We should go back to Minnesota. We should go up to Minnesota. If you ever watch Fargo, you can hear the accent they have up there, which is variation of the ones from Northern Europe. Ah, nice. All right, so now the banana bread. which I've already eaten. As you can see, I've already eaten part of it because, it's banana bread, so I'm going to eat it. Now, banana bread is, basically bananas mashed up. So like a lot of times you will have you'll have these kind of like ripe, getting overripe bananas, right? And you don't want to lose them. But, when they get too overripe, they get a bit mushy and they turn brown, and you're like, oh man, I don't really want to put that in my mouth. Like even me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to put that brown mush in my mouth, right? If I'm going to have a brown mush, I'm going to put it into a cake. And that's what we would do at Spro. We would take we would actually get bananas by the case and just let them sit. If you went down to the kitchens, there'd be boxes of bananas just sitting around waiting. Because what we would do is we would batch it out, right? We would get all these bananas, let them, kind of get to like really dark, and then we strip them, mash them up, make big batches of banana bread batter, portion it out, and then bake it. Is that right? No. We didn't do that. I'm sorry. We would take the bananas, let them, and then we would portion them. I think it was like 300 grams for 2 loaves, 300 grams of mashed bananas. We would take the overripe bananas, mash them, weigh them out to 300 grams, put them into, this is what we do. We would take the overripe bananas, peel them, put them in the bags at 300 grams a bag. I think that's what it was. Maybe it's 600, something like that. In the freezer lock bags, we would mash them and mash them flat, right? Then we could freeze them flat, and then we could layer them in the freezer. So we would have stacks of these like portioned bananas. And then when we needed to actually make the banana bread, then the cooks would pull the frozen banana mash, thaw it out, put it in the mix, and be done. It's so much easier than having to do it on the fly, or trying to time it, or even make the batters altogether. Yeah, I think we started out making the batters years ago, and then we eventually evolved to like just doing the mash. Much, much easier. And and if you have bananas that are getting all unripe, and you don't want to make banana bread, you could do that. Just peel them, put them in a Ziploc bag, mash them down so they're flat, so it's easier to store, right? It's not about like whether or not they should be mashed or not. I mean, eventually they will be, but it was really more about maximizing storage space in your limited freezers. So that's something you could. That's an approach that we took. PowerPoint says, Cook's Illustrated banana bread has you age bananas until they are black, then microwave them for the liquid that separates from the pulp, then use that liquid in conjunction with more black bananas. Oh, interesting. I'm going to have to give that a try. All right, so the thing about the bananas, though, banana bread really came into it. Like if you were to go onto Google, I found this article that said, if you go to Google and you do, or if you look at Google stats, Google says that for banana bread, in an average month, from users based in the United States, there are 1.2 million searches per month on banana bread recipes. The nearest competitor to that is France, with 91,000 searches. I mean, we're talking the United States at 1.2 million, France, 91,000. France is number 2. United Kingdom is third with 77,000. Like, there is a preponderance of banana bread obsession here in the United States, more so than anything else. And it's an interesting journey because a lot of this banana bread and banana consumption is rooted in colonialism. It's rooted in the manipulation of the population for corporate interests. And why do I say this? So prior to the early 1900s, which is the 20th century, which is the era that we were mostly alive in, I just love it how the young kids are all like, yeah, the 1900s. 1900s? What are you talking about? Stop talking like that. So prior to the 1900s, like in the 1800s, especially towards the late 1800s, there would be, they would have bananas in the United States, right? They would bring them up from South America. But the problem is that, you're getting a relatively ripe fruit, you're putting on a boat, you're trying to sail it. And they're not under power, right? They're under sale. So like, God knows how long it takes them to go from South America, or even, let's say they went to like Puerto Vallarta, right? In Mexico, and they're like, coming up the coast, and it's close, right? Oh gosh, they could even be, I mean, they're not going to grow them there because it's the desert. But even if they left from Baja California, and you only have to go to LA, like who knows how long that'll take? But it's much longer, especially if you're coming through the Atlantic side. But anyway, the problem, of course, with any kind of fruit is that it's going to ripen and then it's going to spoil. So you're trying to get bananas from anywhere in Central America to the United States on a boat to the market to a consumer without it spoiling is extremely difficult, especially in those times, right? There's just too much time to get it to travel. However, so one of the big things that changed was the evolution, or the invention of refrigeration. By inventing refrigeration in the early 1900s, now we have revolutionized food transportation across the world. Right now, we can take these bananas, harvest them green. Like these are all harvested green, like greener than green. Like you're like, man, if you saw them when they first came off the stalk, you'd be like, man, that thing is all green. Then they put them in refrigerated boxes. So, they've got these big containers, 40-foot containers that are refrigerated, put them in there, chill them down, keep them cool, keep them green, transport them all the way to the United States. And, if you're in modern day transportation on a container, like typically with coffee, we expect no faster than 30 days. Like if you want it faster, you can fly it, but it's expensive. You can air freight anything. But let's say with coffee, and I don't know how it works with bananas, but let's say with coffee, if I needed to have a coffee air freighted from, let's say, Salvador or Nicaragua, and I'm like, okay, it's time critical that we have this coffee. The general rule of thumb that we would use for a basic calculation was $1 per pound extra. So whatever it cost us per pound, the air freight cost would be at least $1, maybe a little bit more. If you're talking like coffees that are a couple $100 a pound, $1's not a big deal. $1.25, $1.50, not a big deal extra. But especially before modern day tariffs, if your coffee is only like, $2.25, it's like, another $1. See, whole profitability is gone, right? So that's something that became a big consideration. But along with that, now we've got like ripe bananas, or we've got bananas that we can bring to the United States, put in the shelves of the grocery stores, and then they'll ripen somewhere along the way. As you all know, if you're shopping here in the U.S., you go to the grocery store, these are always kind of green, not fully green. Sometimes they're fully green. If you go to Costco and you buy them there, man, they're hella green. But most of the time they're somewhat green. Like you can see here, there's still a little bit green here because it's not vine ripening, so it's not getting the full treatment. It's not like if you took this yellow banana and you ate it, and then you jumped on a plane, you flew all the way down to Central America to one of the plantations, and you just got one off the tree that is fully ripened, there's going to be a big difference. Much more vibrant flavor, probably better clarity, just better fruit experience or berry experience. Another thing that came along that really pushed the innovation of this bread was a company called Royal Baking. Royal Baking just had finally figured out how to create baking soda. And the baking soda is the leavening agent, and that allowed the quick breads, such as the banana bread, to ripen. And so they were actually the company that started pushing this. So now, if you read a lot of the history, if you read some of the history, they're going to talk about, all these intrepid cookbook writers, blah, 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 blah. Who's paying the cookbook writers? Royal, right? And probably Dole. We've got all this stuff. We've got all these bananas. We need people to buy them and make something with them so we can sell them and make a hell of profit. So let's hire these cookbook writers to make these cookbooks and say, hey, a great way to use bananas is to take the ripe bananas, buy the bananas, let them get black, then buy Royal baking powder and put it in your flour and make bread. And it worked wildly. Like I said, 1.2 million searches per month on Google from the United States. Like this is the most popular bread recipe on the internet easily. And so all to push more profit for the corporations. Craig says there are a lot of bananas sold in North America due to geography as well as slavery colonialism. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. If you wrap the stem end of the bunch, they will last longer. But I'm not. Honestly, I don't worry about them lasting longer because, like I said, if things once start to go, I will just toss them in a Ziploc and then keep them for later. All right, so let's make some bread here. Oops. We're gonna make some coffee to go along with it. Just got to bring our water back up to a boil. So we've got our banana bread, and we're going to cut a fresh slice because that I did cut that slice yesterday, and it's not so. The one side here is a little bit hard. I did store it last night wrapped like this, so I wanted to press that up against that so this side would still be nice and moist. And as you can see here, the nice thing is that you can always see the banana bits inside the bread, right? Which is always pleasant. And we need to get... Now, one of the things also to keep in mind is that when you want to make banana bread, a great variant that my mom made not a while back, she put dried cranberries. And when she was like, here, try this cranberry banana bread, I was like, oh, cranberries? Why don't you do something silly like that? Oh, but really good. I was like, oh. The next time she made it, I was like, is there cranberries? No. Oh. All right, so we're going to take this. But you can use any fruit that you want. We'll put in, sometimes blueberries, right? There's blueberries here. I got some blueberries here. And if you don't have them, then you can always just kind of mash them in like that, right? That could be your blueberry kick for the day. Oh, not bad. A little bit sour. Well, quite a bit sour. No, quite a bit tart. Oh, this is the perils of using commercial fruit. It's never as good as when you get it fresh from the farm. My God. All right, so today we're going to be using this coffee that I roasted last month, the Selma Plus Brazil Natural. This is actually a control sample that I pull every once in a while. So this is the roast from October 9th. This is roast number 8. And as you can see here, start at 431 Fahrenheit, and then we finished at 437 Fahrenheit with a total roast time of 11 minutes, 42 seconds. So every once in a while, we'll pull some of these samples to just see, because I'm curious to see what it tastes like. And I mean every once a batch just to see, because I tend to be relatively consistent. And if I'm inconsistent in something, then I will pull a batch of that to see, how badly did I muck this up, if at all. Okay, so let's get our monkey pod bowl. Now, the connection with the Philippines, which is this monkey pod bowl was made in the Philippines, so you can see that kind of carving here, is the United States. Like I mentioned yesterday, the United States conquered the Philippines, overthrew the sovereign government of the Philippines, and, instilled their own colonialism and created a system of subservience to the white man, to Americans. But one of the big things, big byproduct of that, and probably why banana bread is actually quite popular in the Philippines, is because they wanted to get a lot of the banana production. So they actually exported. The Philippines, turns out, was a big exporter of bananas to the United States during the first half of the 20th century. So there's a little bit of correlation there. All right, now let's look at. So as you can see, nice full medium roast here. Actually, again, as always, it always looks darker on my reference monitor than it is in person. It looks like maybe 2 Agtron colors darker. That's like, you can never win. You can never win with this. All right, let's get our scale out. We're going to brew some coffee now to go with this. Power Plant's asking, have you been to Dogon in DC? You know, I have not. And actually, I don't even know what Dogon is. Is it I'm presuming it's a restaurant. Is it a Filipino restaurant? A special treat is to fry the sides of the banana bread in butter. Oh yeah. Maybe I'll, especially like this one. This one is a little bit like hard from yesterday. I might go upstairs and do that today. All right, here we go. Let's make some coffee. We've got our scale. You know, I tell you what, this jacket frustrates me. Right, like this is like one of my early chef coats, and I really kind of don't like them. Like I never like it looks really like if you look closely, it's like in really nice condition. I mean, I try to keep my clothes in nice. I try to keep everything in nice condition, but it's because I never wore it. Like I would wear it only on special, or I would wear it once in a while. Like if I'm working in the kitchen, I'd rather be in a t-shirt or a commie shirt, you know, something with button down, short sleeves, you know, like this. The problem with these is that, you know, and I can work in them and not get dirty, but like, you know, it's just in the way. Like I know classic French guys all wore dressed like this. But I'm like, man, I don't want to catch my sleeves on fire or get them dirty. And here's something to consider. Like if you ever go to a restaurant, you see a kitchen, or see any commercial kitchen, you look around, and you see a dude in a chef's coat like this without an apron, he's not working. He's probably the guy in charge, right? Like the guy, if you see a guy in a chef's coat that has an apron on, he's probably the sous chef. Or at least he's definitely one of the cooks cooking away, making the food. But the guy that's wearing the chef's coat without the apron is not cooking your food. Just a little tidbit there, All right, so we've got 24.4 grams. We're not going to worry about rounding that out. And now we're going to get our favorite grinder, the Ode Gen 2 from Fellow, which has not acted up today. Maybe, or has not acted up yesterday. Maybe it'll act up today. Who knows? Yesterday, and so today we're not going to be using the same type of brewing method. Yesterday we used the Pegasus. Today we're going to use more of an immersion brewer, the Bonavita, which is a ceramic immersion brewer, very similar to the Abbott Clever brewer, but just a little bit more fancy, much more expensive, $65 versus like $25. I think it's a better brewer, but nobody wanted to buy this. Like this was just $65 was way too expensive. And you know, it wasn't like hyped up by social media, so nobody really was interested in it. Poor seller. But if you want immersion type brewers, these are great. And one of the nice things about it is that, you know, you've got a conical brewer here, so you put your number 4 filter, or you can use number 2 depending on how much coffee you're using. And you see there's a spout down there, so if you want, and there's a valve right here, and the valve opens. So instead of having that valve that uses the pressure from the cup and the weight of the brewer, this uses a valve. So the valve opens and closes like this. And it's a silicone gasket there, so it works really well. And I really do like this brewer a lot. Like if I'm going to brew with it, if I'm going to brew, well, I mean, I'm using the cover a lot too. So, but the one thing is that because it is ceramic and it is kind of chilly here in as we get close to the wintertime, I do need to warm up the ceramic just a little bit before we begin. We got that. And then we just use the number 4 filter. Right? Again, as always, I like to fold the filter over, right? Because you don't have to fold the filters. I don't know if you guys fold the filters. I do it only because like I'm super OCD about this. Like this is where my psychosis really comes in. Like I don't care about I don't care about the coffee maker. I don't care about the quantity necessarily. I don't care about the temperature of the water. I don't care about like how much water I'm using. You know, I'm not necessarily, if I'm making coffee myself, I'm not care about all this. But I do care about folding the filter. Like that's like my weird psychosis. Okay, so now we've got our coffee, and let's get our grinder. So because we're using full immersion, we're going to go all the way as coarse as this grinder will go, which is kind of coarse, but I don't think it's as coarse as I would normally use for this. But let's give it a try and see what happens. You gotta be kidding me. Really? Didn't I just say something about like it hasn't acted up, and now it does? This has got to be some bullshit, right? Just when I said it had been acting up. Of course, it's going to jam. Like I said, this is some bullshit. All right, now to plan B. Let us see, what do we have here in the area that I don't have to go and get a grinder from elsewhere in the house. Do I even have a grinder down here? I'll be back. I'm coming back. I am curious though. I have to walk a bit of ways. Could you hear my entire journey the entire way that I was going? Or did it cut out? Because I'm just really, now that's a question, more curiosity for how well the transmitter works versus, well, that's quite irritating. So I've got this Zassenhaus. This is an old school Zassenhaus that was gifted to me by one of my customers, David Clark. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. So I'm going to use this to grind, and I've had this in the garage because, I'm working on this idea project for grinders, and I have this as one of the examples out there. So it gets a little bit dusty. Andrew says, yes, I toast banana bread, then smear butter. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that after we're done here. Strike 3, bin the O. We should really get the binning of the O. That's just ridiculous. Could only hear the steps, then nothing. Okay, great. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah, I mean, like I'm using the first generation of Rode Wireless Go wireless microphones, and they're great. But there's going to be a limitation. I'm just curious to know the limitation. Like if you have line of sight between this and the transmitter, or this and the receiver, usually that you can go pretty far. But of course, I'm winding through the building, so it's a little bit different. All right, let us X64, I'm going to have to go look into that. Maybe we'll have to look into that. Okay, let's see here. We've got our Zassenhaus. I mean, I can get wholesale on those Melkonigs, so I probably should. All right, let's try this again. Tear that out. I don't know what the grinder is set to, but we're just going to grind it and use it however, because you know what? You don't always need to have perfection in everything. Okay, that's good. So the Zassenhaus, as you probably are familiar, there's a door, there's a little drawer to hold your grinds, and then there's you can adjust the grind by unwinding this and doing something. I never adjusted. I did it once because I remember there was a time when it was super fine. I was like, man, we need to adjust that. So then in here, you open the little slot, and there's the grinds, the burrs in there. So 24 grams. It holds, just over 24. No, probably will hold 30 some grams in there. All right, now we can start to grind. Should probably hold it. It's definitely a coarser setting than it used to have. It's so much easier now. Like it is, after you guys were like, you need to change the grind setting. Like, all right. It's so much more pleasurable. Like remember before when it was really fine, like it took forever. I'm like, this sucks. Of course, the grind makes hand grinding a little bit more enjoyable. Of course, I could have just grabbed the Baroxa. I actually had to walk by the Baroxa to get this, so I don't know why I got this. That was foolish. I don't know if you saw the video on the channel about the big Zassenhaus that I recently got. That's part of the project I'm working on. But there is a huge Zassenhaus that's in the garage also. Okay, that's done. Let's have a look at our grinds. Ooh. There's always some that falls out, so I have to see. Look, you can see it in there, right? There's actually some still in there. Like it doesn't always make it into the bin. Yeah, I was really excited, Kent, when I got this. Like the Zassenhaus is a grinder. Actually, it's Santiago, the one that has like a curved body, was the Zassenhaus that I learned how to make coffee on when I was the apprentice. My mentor had one of those, and I was the FNG who had to sit there and grind coffee at 5:30 in the morning, which is why I came up not liking hand grinding. Like I never want to do this again. But anyway, so when I was able to get this Zassenhaus, because they're kind of pricey, I was super excited. I was like, oh man, thank you very much. And so here's our grinds. Fairly coarse. I think that should be great for what we're doing. Put that in here. Oh man. So I have to weigh the scale, tear it out, do all this rigmarole, tear. Now I had the coffee. 362, 25 grams. So there was extra coffee somewhere in there. Whatever. It's all right. Whoops. PowerPoint says, with immersion, the grind size is a bit more flexible, at least to me. I agree. I'm very much more flexible with that. And I mean, actually, I can be flexible with pretty much any grinds, with any kind of grind setting, because, I think it can, I do think you can get decent results just by manipulating how you brew with it, especially if you're trying to compensate for inaccurate grinding. And this one, not terribly big, but big enough. Like there's enough big particulates. I think it'll be all right. 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 Okay, got some boiling going on. Now this one, since it's just an immersion brewer, I'm just going to pour it straight on top. Oh, start our timer. Just make sure they get full saturation. And maybe wait, we're going to wait like 30 seconds to let the bloom that's happening. You can see the bloom is kind of occurring. And then we'll use the water flow to punch it down. I try not to manipulate coffee brewing mechanically. If I can avoid it, I would prefer much more to use the flow of the water to break down like the bloom in this case. So 30 seconds, so that should be enough time. So now we're just gonna. Now you might be concerned, oh, it's kind of hot. And yeah, the water's straight off the boil. So it's kind of overheated in some respects, but I'm not so worried about it because we're not going to cover it. I don't have a cover for this, so it's going to be open. So I wanted to have as much heat as I could for the brew water as I possibly could. Now you can see we're about a minute into our brew, 390, a little bit more than I should have gone, but whatever. That'll be fine. And because I'm actually, in this case, I wasn't paying attention to this. I was actually paying attention to the water level, just where I felt that it would be nice. But so our ratio is going to be different than what the machine tells us it should be. Is that a big deal? 30 grams more, 32 grams more. Is that really a big deal? Maybe another ounce. Maybe. Prophet says, I honestly never bloom coffee when I use immersion. I only like to do that. I only do it because we want to make sure that all the coffee grounds get saturated at all, because otherwise it's just kind of floating. So you could push it down with like a spoon or something. You can do whatever you want. It's not. There's all the gurus telling you. No, actually, I was listening to a podcast. There's a podcast I listened to called the Fine Woodworking Shop Talk Live podcast, and one of the hosts, Vic, he was actually a guy from Canada. He teaches woodworking as well, and he was talking about, like, he was kind of irritated. He's talking about, like, he's like, I ban my students from talking about YouTube in the class. And I was like, listening to him, because he's like, because his complaint was that people come in and they're like, oh, I saw this on YouTube. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. I was like, and then later he was talking about egotism by people. And I was like, that I think. I thought to myself, there's some irony here, because there's definitely egotism in the fact that you're like concerned that people would talk about YouTube, when really for many people that's kind of the introduction to the knowledge that they seek is through sources like YouTube. So it's only natural that they would try to find a way to correlate or reach out to you about that. So now we're 3 minutes, and we should start doing our thing. So I like to leave it for 3 minutes and then take it onto the vessel. In this case, we're going to use this Temu Hario knockoff. $7. It's not $12. I think I just saw it the other day. $12. Open the valve and let it flow. Flow out. Man, I think that's the third time this thing has jammed. So I kind of feel like the grind is a little bit small because now we're just passing 4 minutes. So we're almost at a minute since I opened the valve, or getting close to it. I would like to see the liquid flow, the coffee flow through the coffee within a minute. Now we're at 4:13, 4:14, 4:15. So we're a little bit long. So maybe now it's about a minute. So now we're going a little bit long. That's really where I would like. So in this kind of instance, it would tell me that, for at least this style of brewing, I would like to be coarser. So if I wanted to make a change, I would make it coarser at this point. Paraplan says that Bonavita is nice, but when the Clever is so much cheaper, absolutely. And that's why we never really sold. I think I sold in like 5 years that we had this on the shelf. We sold so few compared to we probably sold 700 of the Clevers. Like, nobody bought this. I kept it on the shelf for too long because I really liked them. I really thought this is a superior brewer in many ways, but what does a coffee professional know about these things, All right, let's have a look here. Let's get rid of this silliness to a grinder that doesn't know how to work. Especially when that came out, people were not as concerned with PFAS. Oh, that's true. That's true. Now I think they're much more concerned about it. All right, let's have a look at our selection: banana bread with a blueberry, and then we have some of our coffee. The number 8 roast, which means nothing other than it was batch number 8 for that day. Oh, heavy body, rich, good level of bitterness. Pretty good. All right, now, really, but the coffee's the sideshow today. The coffee's the sideshow. Let's have a look at our banana bread. I took the blueberry out. Let's break the crumb and see the tear. Oh, nice structure, right? Look at that. Good structure, I think. Now, granted, this was made on Saturday, so we're quite a ways away. This is not going to be a peak performance, which is why I'll probably go upstairs and cook that one. Paige is with us. What's going on, Paige? How are you? Good morning. Powerplant says, I missed the old Aerobie AeroPress. You mean the one that gives you all of the BPAs, so the carcinogens. I miss those too. I used to have them because I started using them on the first generation, but I only have Gen 3, I think. I think the oldest I still have is Gen 3. Because, after a while you use them in the shops and they get totally trashed. So we just tossed them. I never thought about keeping them. The only reason I have the old one that I've shown on the show is because it just got tossed in a box at the roaster and sat there for a decade or longer. And then after a while, I was like, oh man, I shouldn't throw this out. I should keep it. I always got a chuckle at the quote in the box that said, the best espresso I ever had. Do I have a box? Yeah, that was always a good one. But I think it's contextually for the era, because when Alan decided to make the AeroPress, he released it in 2005. And that was the era. That was the heyday of the emergence of third wave. The third wave was really starting to come on into its own at that point. It just exploding into the marketplace. And back then, in 2002 to 2005 and into 2009, all of us that were in the business were really more obsessed with espresso. Everything was about espresso. Drip coffee is dumb. That's for the masses. That's for the fools. That's for the larks, the charlatans, and the nitwits. If you're into coffee, you're into espresso, and we're making espresso. We're slinging it. We're gunslingers. We're murderers. We're slaughtering people with our espresso. We're the badasses of the business. Everybody else sucks. Right? That was kind of the vibe, right? That everybody's pushing on. So when Alan decided to make his AeroPress, it makes sense to me now that now years later when I think about it, because back then you're all young in the business, you're all What espresso? That ain't no espresso. That's some Joker. That's some Joker stuff, right? It makes coffee. It don't make no espresso. But back then, Alan's trying to capitalize on that hype for espresso. So I think that it is a pressurized brew. So you could say, I get what you might say. You might want to frame it as espresso, but that's, I think contextually, that's why that kind of came out that way. But I totally remember that writing on the box. Craig, Paige says, I'm all right working, just made my morning latte. Awesome. Airby, the company that made the original AirPress, also invented the Airby. Absolutely. I have someone somewhere. But I didn't know about the Airby at the time that I got the AirPress. I was just going like, oh, AirPress. Especially because back then, unlike now, there were so many people releasing so much product to try to capitalize on people's craze with obsession with coffee. Back then, it was really new. So nobody was really, very few were releasing products. There was Bodum, maybe a couple other companies. And then Alan came out with the AirPress. And it was like, oh man, everyone's like, oh, AirPress. And then the Clever came out. Nice. So that's pretty much the history of the banana bread. Now, I do have a couple recipes down below about the banana bread from different people. Now, the one that I think there's two recipes that are kind of normal. The third recipe comes from a friend of mine, Kylie Parati, and she's someone I've known for like 15 years now or longer, and she has her own blog called Tried and True Recipes, and she has this variation on the banana bread, but it's more like a banana cake, which is actually more accurate to what banana bread really is, right? So that might be worthwhile trying out. It's a totally different take on it. So, all right, many live on that. All right, well, that's the banana bread and some coffee to go with it. And I'm going to go up and take to the kitchen and take this and fry it in a pan with butter. So I hope you have a wonderful day out there. Thanks for tuning in. Back again tomorrow with more of the coffee Q&A. So maybe I'll have a different grinder for tomorrow. All right, so hope you have a great one, and see you next time. Thanks, Paige, and Kent, and